Ciao amici, welcome to this Turinepi virtual edition, and we are waiting for everyone to be online and especially for Renata to be added. Ciao Renata! Just a second.
Ciao Lucia,
Ciao Renata, how are you tonight?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I cannot really complain. So let me just welcome everyone to this very first chat of Turinepi Virtual Edition. Usually we would be in a 19th century historic theater, but given that we're all stuck at home, and even if in Italy we can already travel within Italy, it's still taking a pain and a long time. So it's just easier to do it online this time. Can you hear me
I'm
well?
very happy. I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me?
Yes, great.
Hi Kate, I see you. Hello. Welcome everybody. Looking forward to a little chat about Italy. So if you have questions or if you want us to talk about a specific thing, just let us know in comments and we'll do our best.
Hello. Okay, so I'm just gonna say a couple words about Turin Epicurean capital just because everybody's asking me what this is about. And it's basically an event that I've organized to put some highlights over the city that was the first Italian capital. And it's still very much under promoted and nobody knows it, but it's a gem, a hidden gem that everybody should really know about. And so I thought that the best way to do it is to have people coming over and see it for themselves. And so every year I make some contacts through the social media, and I always want inspiring people coming over. And Renata, you are one of them. So this is actually the 7th edition. So I've been doing it for 7 years now. And I gotta say that the guests, when they come, they're kind of skeptical because obviously they know about Rome, they know about Venice, they've been to Milan. And then when they leave, they cry because they say, you didn't tell us that there was this, and you didn't tell us that there was that. And the thing is that Turin, just like a human being, needs to be discovered in first person.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, all I can do is just to throw a little pebble in the pond and hoping that they catch the essence. And then when they ask to come back, obviously I welcome back anytime. So Renata, tell us a little bit about you, who are you and your work and your passions.
Of course. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to Turinepi. I am just so sad that I can't be there, but we'll do our best for now, the way it is. I am a travel photographer, and more recently, I started writing about my travels because all these little places I keep discovering everywhere in Europe are just so fantastic that I want them to be enjoyed by as many people as possible without, destroying the local culture and everything, because I am against over tourism actually. But, if we're gentle, we can all visit and leave places the way we found them, or maybe even better somehow. So I usually go to France and England, but I have been to Italy twice already. Once many years ago, and the second time was just 4 years ago. And I got the chance to visit Rome, Milan, Genoa, the Cinque Terre,
Mm-hmm.
Portofino, Pisa, Salerno in the south, and a
Mm-hmm.
little bit further south, there's this little gem of a town called Santa Maria del Castellabate, or di Castellabate, which is
Mm-hmm.
by the sea, by the Tyrrhenian Sea. Oh, it is absolutely beautiful. I would love to come back. And sadly, I have never been to Turin, so I was so looking forward to discovering it. So hopefully next
So
year.
Oh, next year is gonna happen. I mean, we are all ready. I mean, so
Yes, we are.
let me ask you this: based on your previous experience in Italy,
Hmm.
I should say actually experiences, what is your expectation about Turin? What idea did you build up in your mind? You know, what kind of city do you expect to find?
Well, I have to say, I was born in Romania.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys know a little bit of history, the Romans conquered what used to be Dacia, the former territory, in 106 AD. And we consider ourselves a little bit Italians, you know.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Obviously,
Sure.
Romania coming from Roma, the
Yeah.
colonists.
Mm-hmm.
And we are, I don't want to say prejudiced, that's not the right way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
We are partial to Italians and Italian culture because
Mm-hmm.
it's basically we share the same blood, we share a common
Mm-hmm.
language, the Latin language. And my experience so far with Italy has been wonderful. I've met wonderful people, I've made friends there. I
Mm-hmm.
love Italian food. Who doesn't? Anybody?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't anybody
Mm-hmm.
love it? And I think my expectations were of a city that would be rich in culture, rich in
Yeah.
gastronomic experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love Asti drinks, so I was looking forward to maybe traveling a little bit outside the city to the
Mm-hmm.
Asti region. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. And I don't know, I was just very, very excited to come over. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, the reason why I was asking you is because on the one hand, people cannot really even imagine what it could be like. And on the other hand, somebody knows about Fiat and Juventus that are our two main brands from here. So they expect
true.
a city that is stuck in the 1960s, that it's an Italian communist city with a lot of blue
Mm.
collars. And this has changed a lot. And right now, I would say that like the atmosphere is, I don't want to say austere, but I would say elegant with a twist.
Mm.
Because we are highly creative, and the creativity side comes from the well, as you know, when you are locked into a crisis time, you know, you have to find a way to escape from the reality, and this is where many Italian national trends and brands are actually born here. So that's just why I was asking you if you had any expectations, but the wine are going to be quite satisfactory here. So
I'm sure
yeah,
of it.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
and not just that, but I've been following you for, I would guess maybe a year because it started
Yes,
with the previous Turinepi
yes,
via my friend Christina from Christina's
yes,
Cucina. She was
yes.
there last year, so I followed her stories and I saw the pictures and I saw yours, and I think I had a better understanding of the city just because of you and her mainly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's go back to your work and your writing and your photography, and the fact that you
Mhm.
said that now you're feeling the need to write. So let's start at the beginning. How did you approach to photography?
Oh, it was it was quite random actually. In 2014, I took my first trip to Paris, and this is a story I love to tell because it was so serendipitous. And I took a lot of photos, a lot, hundreds of photos, just like any other tourist probably. And many of them were just pretty bad, I'll confess. But a few of them were okay, and friends saw them and loved them. And actually, one friend said I wouldn't mind having a print of this photo on my wall, which highly encouraged me. So
Mhm.
I actually had an art show that fall after my trip to Paris, and it was pretty well received. And I thought, okay, maybe they're not as bad as I think. So I
Mhm.
just put more heart into it and more work. And obviously, the more you do something, the better we'll get at it. And I just wanted to go back and take more photos. And from Paris, I expanded to the south of France. I went to Provence. I went to Nice. And from there, I actually went to Genoa. That
Mhm.
was in 2016, yes. And it kind of grew from there. And I kept doing a few art shows, but then as print sales weren't really that good anymore, I thought, well, these photos need to get out somehow. And I thought, well, if I write about the places with the photographs, maybe more people would be interested in them. And then I also had a suggestion from a friend that said maybe I should try to do a book about the French Riviera, since I had countless of photos from there. So I actually did that last year in July. So the book is available for everybody who would like to see it via my website. And the writing, I don't know, it's just you get to this point in your life when you get inspired in so many ways by so many other people that have come before you. And I just felt like I had stories that needed to come out and recommendations. And it just so happened that I found a few people interested in what I had to say. And I'm grateful for them.
That's so nice. So when you do your travel photography services, what do you try to portray? What do you try to convey? Is it the atmosphere, anything that really catches your eye? I will give you an example. I mean, obviously, I have an Instagram account and I'm taking pictures all the times of Turin. That is my native city. So now my goal is to show one side of the city that you cannot find in the regular IG Turin or IG Torino or whatever other native accounts. I want to show what makes it special, but from the not natives perspective. And it's not as easy as it sounds, because we are very much proud of our formal culture that is in the architecture, but not in the tiny little bits. So there are aspects of the local cultures that when you're following a native from Turin, you hardly ever see. So what I try to convey is the lifestyle that is highly rich. We are super spoiled in Turin. Even the poors are very, very spoiled compared to other cultures. We have access to high quality foods. We have 4 seasons. I mean, this is something that you really appreciate when you leave the country, because having 4 very distinct seasons doesn't seem to be anything much. But then when you live only with the summer and the winter, it becomes a big thing that you really miss. And you know what I'm talking about. There's also an aspect of, I would define it as the sympathy, like an empathetic feeling that we have. That one is harder for me to represent. So my question for you is, what do you try to convey through your pictures?
You know, I'm usually drawn to architecture wherever I go. I am an architecture lover, and sadly, I could not draw a straight building to save my life, but I do appreciate what others create. And I would say that features the most in my photos. And then, you know, I try to get some hidden corners that maybe people don't see when they travel. Although my time is always very short. I'm only there for, I would say, 3 weeks at a time. So it's pretty intense moving from town to town and trying to capture the soul of the place as much as I can. And I avoided taking photos of people for the longest time due to privacy concerns, and I wasn't quite sure where to draw the limit with street photography, so I tended to avoid that. But the more I do this, the more I realize that great travel photos have people in them. So I think I'll try to change a little bit next time I travel and try to capture some of the locals as well. But for now, it's mainly landscape and architecture.
Okay, so the colors, the everything that is visual, basically, except for the people.
Yes.
And then what about the foods? Do you also do food, the local foods?
I do. Actually, you know, I photograph a lot of food and drinks when I travel. They just don't show on my Instagram feed because somehow, you know, it doesn't seem to be on theme, but sometimes they make it into the stories. I think the stories are just so free, and we can post just about anything there. So yes, I do photograph the foods, absolutely, and I do enjoy the foods. I love food, so this festival would have been perfect for me.
Oh, okay, well then, since we are in the topic, tell us, what is your favorite food?
I don't know if I have a favorite food. I really like mussels, like mussels and fries, for example. My favorite dessert is tiramisu.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it for years, and I just can't find anything else to beat it, really. But I do love a good chocolate cake too. But tiramisu is my absolute favorite. And I do love pasta, any kind of pasta.
Mm-hmm.
My kids love pasta. They ask for it all the time. I do love a good pizza, but you know, the American pizza is so not like Italian pizza. I was
Mm-hmm.
absolutely shocked when I traveled to Italy and I saw how basic but how delicious it was. So it's
Mm-hmm.
basically the pizza pie with one or two ingredients,
Mm-hmm.
and that's about it. And it's absolutely scrumptious. And here we just have the pizza loaded with all sorts of things, and it's not the same at all. So yes, I do miss a good Italian pizza and focaccia. I also love focaccia too,
Oh
which is
man.
quite similar, but maybe you can tell me what the difference is, because if somebody asked me, well, what's the difference? I couldn't pinpoint it except for the shape, but otherwise, I don't know.
Between, you mean
Pizza
between
and
pizza
focaccia.
and focaccia? Okay, so
Hmm.
pizza is basically topped with tomato sauce and mozzarella cheese. That's the
Hmm.
basic pizza thing. The focaccia is a sailor bread. So it got originated when the Genoan sailors used to go at sea and they needed a bread that would keep without going stale for a long time. And so it's basically olive oil. The traditional one is the Ligurian olive oil that is particular. It's
Hmm.
quite different from the others. And it's a bread because basically you just make it with wet flour and water, olive oil, and salt. That's it. So it's very,
Okay,
very
so
basic.
it's from Genova actually. I didn't
Yeah,
know
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Focaccia is typical of Liguria. Now, if you go to Rome, you
Hmm.
can have what they call pizza bianca. Now, the difference is that focaccia is thick. So
Hmm.
when it's funny that we're talking about it because first of all, I love focaccia. I just made one last week. So I could be eating focaccia and gelato every day if I could.
I'm with you on that.
And the other thing is, when I was teaching the Italian class, like the Italian food class at Purdue, the students were so much into it, into the story, that they wanted to make it at home. And then they brought it to the class for, to have the class to taste it.
Hmm.
And so I was, the expression that I was using to explain them how thick it needs to be was you need to make it as tall and soft as a cat mattress. Like you have those pillows for the cats, and they need to be very soft. That's the thickness of the focaccia bread. Now, when you go to pizza
Oh,
bianca, it's the regular pizza dough, just without the tomato
flat.
sauce and the cheese. So that's why it's very, very short. It's totally not
Hmm.
the same. It looks like it is the same, but it's not. So
Hmm. So the focaccia dough would contain yeast then to rise so nicely.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
You can use any kind of yeast. Actually, I started baking in the US, and I bought this book from a chef. It's an American chef who actually was working in London, and he has like an introduction where he says about the yeast. Ideally, you would need to use the fresh yeast, but if you use the double active one, the one in little bowls, like the
Hmm.
dry one, double active
Hmm.
yeast, that one is good too. So if you want, I mean, I can even give you the recipe I use. It's
Yes, I think I'd like to try it for myself. Yes, yes. It's
but
fun.
it,
Well, I've been making French baguettes, so might as well transition and make some focaccia as well. So yes, I would love that.
I think the recipe might even be the same, except you need to add 1/4 of a cup of olive oil together
Okay.
with the water. And as like the proportions are roughly 4 cups of flour, and you can use any kind of flour. So I normally mix it. I have some farro flour or some rye flour and
Hmm.
some white flour. And then that's also when I also put the spices like turmeric or dry herbs and the
Hmm.
salt. Now, with the salt, my recipe calls for an exceeding amount of salt, so I put just like half a teaspoon because I don't like it very salted. But you would have to put a tablespoon of salt. So that's a
Oh,
lot.
that
But you
does
get a
sound like a
kilo.
lot. Yes.
But you
Hmm.
get a kilo with it. So you get a kilo loaf. So it's a lot.
Hmm.
And then it's about slightly more than a cup of water and
Hmm.
1/4 of a cup of olive oil. So
Hmm. And
roughly
thankfully,
that's the
we
thing.
do find some good olive oil here from Italy, so that is nice.
When I was living there, I was buying Carapelli.
Hmm.
So as a
What do
brand,
you think? Bertoli, is that a good brand? Carapelli, I can
it's
find
not
too.
bad. Now this is quite of a hard topic, Renata, for Italians. And you know why?
I do
It's because
know.
when you look where the olives are
Hmm.
from for the oil,
Hmm.
they are from Spain.
Right.
Now, from the European Union perspective, that's a very minor detail, but for Italians, this is a big, big problem because all the products from Spain are not as strictly regulated as in Italy and
Hmm.
France.
Hmm.
And we are the two pains in the butt of the European Union. But I say this with pride because to us, we have our identity in our ingredients. This is a
Hmm.
concept that non-Italians and non-French have hard time understanding. For us, it's very, very important to know where the products, where the ingredients originated, how they were
Hmm.
made, so the whole production chain. And in the case of the olives, the good olive oil, so the extra virgin olive oil needs to be made with a cold press. That's the super high quality. So unless you read it on the label, and it needs to say Italian olives and fully made in
Hmm.
Italy, not just a product of Italy,
Right.
then it's
Hmm.
not as good. And Bertoli, I was told by two of my TAs were from Apulia, down in the Florida of Italy, so the heel of Italy, that
Hmm.
they didn't approve of that brand. And so when I saw the bottles at Walmart, I would just get Carapelli by
Hmm.
instinct. But I'm sure that it's the same. As long as it's not a low quality olive oil, as
Hmm.
long as it's not like peanut oil or canola oil, it's
Hmm.
good. Now, when
Right.
you taste it, if you go to Williams and Sonoma, sometimes they have those olive oil tastings. And I did once. Like, they have the cart with all the bottles,
Hmm.
and you
Hmm.
don't really know where those bottles are really from. Like, you don't have the time to really look at the
Right.
label because we're just at the mall. But I was there with a friend of mine who was a truly refined palate. And I remember that when you dip the little bread into, they give you those little cups,
Hmm.
so you basically have the
Sure.
little olive oil cup and then you dip the little piece of bread. When you eat it, once you swallow it, you have to have a feeling of sourness coming up. So if you get
Interesting.
that feeling, that's the super high quality olive oil.
I might not have any then.
No,
I
but
don't
but
know.
but,
I
but
can't
do.
remember that. Yeah, I understand that. Yes, and you're right. And it's very interesting that when I was in Genoa, I was staying with some Italian friends, and they said the same thing to me about olive oil and pasta and Parmigiano Reggiano. It has to be
Mhm.
from a certain area only, and the balsamic vinegar. So they were quite particular about the products they were buying and the brands they were supporting, I guess. So that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
very interesting to me. And actually, they pointed out to me the olive issue that you mentioned. And I started looking at labels, and indeed, you can see that there are olives from Spain, Turkey, Tunisia. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just Italian olives. So I
Yeah,
get
yeah,
that.
yeah. And we
Yeah.
have, with the common market in Europe, we have big
Hmm.
problems with everything, with the cheeses, with the chocolate, with the hazelnuts. Because
Hmm.
obviously, like if you think of another local brand here is Nutella by Ferrero.
Sure.
We've been making the chocolate with the local hazelnuts because our climate is mild, and so that's why we have the hazelnut growers. Now the sales of Nutella went up so much that Ferrero's bought all the hazelnut growers that are in the region, but they are also importing
Hmm.
some. And the quality of the hazelnuts is not exactly the same, but clearly, it's like when you make a pesto, one thing is you need to serve the hazelnuts and they are whole, and so if you crack them open and they get
Hmm.
ruined, then you can see it. But when you made the cream, you don't really care, because you don't
Right.
see it, So, but it's still a problem, So, so when you come over to Piedmont and you go to the wine country, that's also where we have the hazelnut grapes. with pride, everybody's going to tell you, this is the gentle and round hazelnut. That is our local variety.
Are you thinking about including a trip maybe for next year to a hazelnut farm?
For this edition, we had, because I was talking to Christina, we had planned to do a sustainable wine tour, and it was in the area of Brachetto. Did you try this wine, Brachetto?
No, I have not.
Okay, so you
what
guys
type of
didn't
wine
buy
is it?
Okay, so Brachetto is basically, how can I say? You can in the US you can find it at Walmart, at least in Indiana. That's where I would buy it. It's a super aromatic wine. It's red and sparkling, and it's the wine for St. Valentine's Day. Mark Antony actually gave it to Cleopatra to seduce her. So good it is.
Okay, Brachetto then. I'll have to make a note.
Brachetto. Yes, it's super delicious. You will find a little bottle. It doesn't come in a 1 liter bottle. It's maybe 2 glasses, but you can serve it chilled. It's not really sparkling, but it's frizzy. So so it's very, very pleasant. And if you have some prosciutto or some little snacks here and there, it really pairs very well. And it also goes with desserts. So, and the scent is like roses.
Okay, very good. And there's also some prosciutto just about every day in my fridge because I love prosciutto. Yeah, I make sure I'm stocked. Yes.
Yeah, and
very
so
yes.
So this wine, they make it in an area that was colonized by the ancient Romans, and they had the spas because there are some natural springs. And so we were going to go there. So next year, I will send an email to everyone, to double check that, this is still something that somebody is interested in it. And then this was, what's in the plans.
Sure, that sounds good. I was only familiar with bigger brands like Asti Spumante. That's something that I would even find in Romania, and of course I find it in America easily. So, sometimes we're just forced to stick with what we can find, not necessarily what is better from that region. So, yes, good to know.
But when you go to your Walmart, I'm not sure that Target would have such a wide selection. My Walmart in West Lafayette would have it, probably because we were like the university Walmart, and we had a lot, like a big international community. So probably that was why. But otherwise, look around. You never know, and it shouldn't even be that expensive. It was like $10 a bottle, so it's something very affordable for such a wine. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I'll be looking.
And so now that you are writing, what is your inspiration to write? Are you chronicling your travels? Are you describing the pictures, or
Yes, it's mainly the photos that are the inspiration initially. And of course, when you look at the photos, you remember the places, you remember how you felt in the moment, and from there it just grows. And I started smaller with restaurant recommendations or hotel recommendations, places that I loved, but then I'm trying to transition now into storytelling more to actually convey the feelings that I had when I was in a specific place. So
that's very nice.
It's all changing. Yes, it's been changing constantly since I started this big adventure. So it's been fun.
But isn't that the best part of being an artist?
It is. It's wonderful. Yes, that you can try different things and see where you can find your place. And I even tried some poetry, also travel inspired. And from there, I moved on to some other. I'm a lot more shy to share my poetry with the people that follow me because it's rather personal. Photos are easy, poetry is not. So yes, for now there's a lot out there, but it's not for the public.
Well, when you feel ready, you should definitely go ahead and share it, because I'm sure that you know, if your style is the same as of your photography, you know, you can only be applauded because, I mean,
Oh,
it's
thank you. That's
amazing.
very kind. Thank you. Yes, I shared a little bit during the worst of the lockdown period. So that's when I just felt compelled to just get out what was going on through my mind. But after that, somehow it just kind of stopped. So I just
Mhm.
write for pleasure now. So yes,
Well, not
it'll
bad,
come. It'll
right?
come a day. It'll come a day, surely.
Well, it's
Yes.
interesting that during the lockdown, most of us had to find an outlet, you know, I created something to
Very
let
true.
the, um, I don't want to say the sadness of the moment, but the tension probably of the moment. Um, I just couldn't read. I was so, I felt like stuck in the present without an expectation for the future, and I just
Sure.
couldn't be reading anything. So, not books. I would read stuff online, but it's not the same.
Very true. Yeah,
Mm.
it was hard for everybody. I'm glad it's
Yes,
easing up a bit by now.
yes.
Yeah.
So, besides Turin, what's in your next travel plans? What place are you really craving to visit?
I have to say, it's been on my list for years. I would love to go to Amalfi and Positano because
Aha.
I saw other people's photos and it looks amazing. I would love to see Florence for all the culture and the museums.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you cannot go to Italy and not see Venice, as cliche as it might seem. I would love to go there because I haven't seen it for myself. So, you know, it would just be fun to visit. And I actually have a cousin that lives very close in Padua. So I'm sure she would be happy to, you know, uh,
Padua
be
is
my
amazing.
companion. Is it
Padua
really?
is amazing. Oh my God, really. Okay, all of Italy is
So that
beautiful.
should be higher on my list, I guess.
No, look, this is my recommendation to everyone visiting Italy. So the first time, what you want to do, this is not your case, but maybe somebody
hmm
who's following us. First time you come, you need to cut the country into three parts, three portions: the southern portion, the central portion, and the northern portion. Ideally, from the northern part, you would have, this is what I used to recommend to my students, to land in Vienna, and then with the
hmm
train come down so you can see the landscape changing. And
Sure.
when you cross east to west, the northern part of Italy, you should stop in Trieste because
hmm
Trieste used to be part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and it's on the sea. It's on the opposite armpit, as I call it, of Liguria and Genoa and Nice in France. So the architecture
hmm
is just precious. Then naturally Venice, and then on your way to Milan, then you have two stops that you need to take. Verona, because you can go and see the arena, and the arena is like the Colosseum, but in better shape. Because when we have the opera season, they still have it in the Roman arena.
Oh,
So,
wow. I didn't know
so
that.
yeah. So Verona, when you go to Venice, what you want to estimate is about 3, 4 days in Venice, because one day you want to go to the little islands, because each one of the islands in Venice, they have their own specialty. The glass, the
hmm
laces, and then the other one is where they have like the very, very ancient church from, I don't even know, well before the Middle Age, when the first inhabitants of Venice were living there. And then
hmm
one day you just want to go around the canals, you want to go to the ghetto, you want to just take a sense of the city, and then maybe another day you want to visit a museum. And so you really need 3, 4 days, maybe even 5 for Venice. And then on the train line, I think the first stop is Verona, and then the second one is Padua. Now, these can be trip of a half a day or even just a full day, but relaxing. So the Roman arena is in Verona, and in Padua you have La Cappella degli Scrovegni, that is the Chapel of Scrovegni. And this is all frescoed by Giotto. So you get inside. When I went, I didn't need to make any appointment, but you can look it up now if maybe they change it, because they allow in just like 10 visitors at a time, or it's like a restricted number, and you can stay maybe half an hour. So you're in this Romanesque church that it's been there since the Middle Ages, and the dome, it's of a shade of a blue that it's just, you gotta see it. It's a hue that is between French blue, royal blue, and like a bright navy blue, with all the stars in gold, and basically all the length through the main area. You know, like the because like when you look at the plan of the church, it's like a cross, right? You have a longer arm, and then you have the two, like the shorter one. So when you're walking through the longer arm, you look it up, and all the pieces of the Bible are represented like in a big comic strip. And it's still the original art of Giotto from the Middle Ages. And it's still there. So it is amazing.
Must see that.
So,
We'll be adding that too to the very long list that I have. And I didn't even mention the Italian lakes. I saw my friend Christine popping in, and she's a wedding and destination photographer, and she's been to Lake Como several times. And every time I see her photos, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I have to go there. So thank you, Christine, for joining. I don't know if she's still on because you can't really see people popping in and out, but yes, I would love to see that too. And then Sardinia in the south.
Well, that's Sardinia. Let me just tell you, we have all of the wealthiest people coming over from all over the world to go to Sardinia. It's heaven on earth, seriously. So, but you know, it's so easy, you know, it's so easy. And then when you go to Sardinia, get the ferry and go up to Corsica, because it's gonna be a complete different situation. Like the nature is completely different. The people are different. Even though Corsica was just like Nice, was once part of the Savoy Kingdom, was part of Italy, but the landscape is just different. So it's amazing.
Yes, that would be a dream come true for sure. So yes, my list is long, as you can see. Don't know when I'm gonna get it all done. But you know, one place at a time, and yeah.
Exactly.
Hopefully.
Yeah. No, in 3 weeks you can do a lot. I mean, in 3
That's
weeks
true.
you can certainly do all of the northern Italian lakes. I mean, the major ones. So you can certainly do Como, you can do Garda, you can do Maggiore. When you come over here, you can definitely go to the wine country. And we have another little gem of a lake is Orta. That is nice too.
Heard of it.
Yeah, so or if you decide you want to do a little bit up north and a little bit down south, or even go to Sardinia, we have an airport in Turin. You can just fly and, you know, and stay there a week. So, and then you come back on the continent. So it's nice.
What would be a good home base to see the Northern Lakes? What do you think?
I think if you plan to go to Venice, to be based in Venice and do all the northeastern parts from Venice, simply because if you consider that out of 3 weeks you would spend maybe 10 days in the northeast, most of those days would be still in Venice. And then all the other days you can do a one-day trip from there. And it's feasible. It's really, really feasible.
So it's pretty easy by train, by bus, or would I need a car?
Oh yeah. No, by train is super feasible. This is how Italians move. When we go to Venice,
that's how I move when I travel.
Yeah, just because gas is so expensive, maybe now, you know, with the €1 buses, it's different. However, I do not exactly know how it is in terms of hours of transportation. By train, to give you an extent, from Turin to Venice is 5 hours.
Okay.
So
it's a stretch.
So yeah, so you don't want to be based in Milan. Basically, Milan to me is good only for the Australians and the people coming from the Southern Hemisphere, because that's more convenient for them to fly in. But in terms of things to see and things to do, there's really nothing. I mean, not even going
I
shopping.
agree. I tend to agree. I was there for a few days and I struggled to fill them. I went to the Sforza Castle.
Yes.
Of course, I went to the Vittorio Emanuele Galleria and to the
Mm-hmm.
Duomo, and the view from up there was fantastic. The Duomo is magnificent for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But after I was done with that, I thought, well, better just head to Cinque Terre then, because there's not much left. So, yes, I
And
agree with
Renata,
you.
consider we have 3 gallerias in Turin, not one. We have 3.
Hmm.
And this
I
is
saw you
Turin.
mentioning that. I think it was a story just a few days ago when you mentioned that, and I thought, I didn't even know. So it's a
And
pity that they're not more well known.
it's, you know, it's always hard to know what to show when you haven't
Hmm.
traveled. So this is
Sure.
where the city council is, you know. But anyway, it's better because then the surprise is gonna be, you know, enhanced when you come over.
It's true. It's true. But I think what you're doing is also very good because you're giving people an idea that there's a lot of treasures to discover there. Otherwise, like I said, I would have not known. If it weren't for you and for Christina last year, I would have had no clue. So probably Turin would have not been on my map, I'm sad to say. So it's very important that you keep doing what you're doing because people like me will find out and come over for sure. I cannot
Well, you
wait.
know, oh, next year is gonna be just wait and see. And I'm curious to see what Simon and the Star, that is an Italian astrologer, is going to post at the end of the year because
Oh,
yeah, because
interesting. Did he see
I
this
wanna
coming?
see.
Oh
Yeah. And plus next year is gonna be the year of the pig, and the
no.
pig
Okay.
is wealthy. It's
It's
because you know the
auspicious then.
pig.
Okay, that's good to know. Very good.
Yeah, yeah. So
Let's all
I'm
make it to
sleeping.
next year then. That's the
Yeah.
goal for the rest of this year. Let's make it to the next. Yep.
Yes. Oh boy. Okay, so I
Very
think
good.
we have just, I don't know, another 5 minutes. What do you think?
Sure.
And then so is there anything you would like to know? You would like to ask me?
Somebody sent me a direct message about great Italian movies that were filmed in Italy for people to watch and just enjoy and, see what to expect if they do travel to Italy for first comers, of course. What would you
Well, I would
recommend?
Well, I would recommend, since you mentioned going up on the top of the Duomo in Milan, a movie that it's called I Am Love. So the Italian title is in English, I think.
Hmm.
No, it's Io sono l'amore actually, but the English translation is I Am Love. It's amazing. Gotta tell you though, um, it's how can I say this? It's a movie that I showed again in my class because it's about food, the relationship with food, but it's everything that is in the essence of the Italian culture. So you have
Hmm.
everything that is part of Milan. You have the Duomo, an amazing scene at the top of the Duomo. You have the fashion, the top
Hmm.
of the Italian fashion. You have it all concentrated in that movie. And in Milan, there is this house, it's called Villa Necchi, that is, for people who are into architecture, it's a place that you need to go and visit. And the movie is set right inside of this Villa Necchi. So it
Oh.
is a movie that must be seen. Um, it's not your traditional Dolce Vita style movie because Italy has changed from the 50s and the 60s.
Hmm.
Um, there are different topics that are dealt with in this movie. So one is love, obviously. The other one is immigration. Another one is parents and kids relationships. So, but I highly recommend it. So I Am Love is one, Io sono l'amore. And then I personally really like all of the production of Ferzan Ozpetek. He's a Turkish director, but he's been living in Italy since the early 70s. And when you read articles about him in the Italian newspapers, they call him Il Regista Leccese, because he is a director who's based in Lecce, in Apulia.
Okay.
And honestly, if you didn't know that he's Turkish, you wouldn't be able to say that. He has one actress who is Turkish, who's always working with him. But I gotta say, whenever I see this woman, I feel affectionate to her because I recognize her. And the stories are just the soul of Italy. It's universal topics. He's talking about the universality of feelings. Maybe it's not just the traditional things, but it's what Italy is now. So Ferzan Ozpetek, there are two movies that I had shown in my classes. One was the front window, La finestra di fronte. The other one is Le fate ignoranti. So Le fate is ignorant fairies, they translated. And this one is, now I think that movie has it's 20 years old, maybe more. And it's still the way that the plot is built, the way that it develops through the movie, the images, the atmospheres, the feelings are just amazing. So I really highly recommend it. And then there is this one. Now, do you know this Italian actor called Riccardo Scamarcio?
I do not know him, no.
Well, he is a very famous Italian actor. He's done many, many movies. I think he was married to Valeria Golino, who is another famous Italian actress.
I know her, yes.
Yeah, well, he used to be her husband, or anyway, they had a very long relationship and then finally they split. He's now working abroad too. He was in a movie with an international cast called Le Traducteur, that is a French movie that is also very, very nice, but nothing to do with Italy. But in 2 words, I don't like him. I don't find him sexy. I'm not interested in his production, in what he does. But he was in a movie by Ferzan Ozpetek, and it was just amazing. It was amazing. It was the story. It was set again in Apulia, in a very traditional Southern Italian family, but during our days. And the father had a family pasta factory and 2 male sons. And one was having a happy life far away from home in Rome, and the other one was the one who was supposed to inherit the factory. And then one weekend, the younger one, the one from Rome, drives back to Apulia, and there's something that happens.
Don't tell us, because we'll be watching.
No, I'm not going to, but I will just tell you that the way, in this household, is many generations. So there is the father with his wife, his sister, who is, how can I say, a sexy 50-year-old spinster, because she's unmarried, but she used to have a happy life, just like this nephew of hers who's living in Rome. And she leaves the window open at night for her lover to come every single night. And then when they are done, she yells, the thieves, il ladro, every single night. So the whole family knows that it's not the real thieves, but it's her lover. But she does the scene every single night. So it's just, look it up. I will now, when I'm gonna post this video, I'm gonna look the title and I'm gonna put it so people can.
That would be great. Also, the other things that we mentioned, maybe so people can actually look them up.
Yes, you mean the other movies, right? Yeah.
Movies and a couple of brands that you mentioned, the wine and the things to do in Padua and Verona. So I think that would be useful for
Yes.
Yes, if you could do that, that would be great. Yes. I think my personal favorite is go ahead.
No, you can tell that it's storming because
That's
look, I
getting
have no
darker.
light
Yes, yes,
anymore.
indeed. Yes, I noticed.
Let me see if I can move maybe closer to the window. Go ahead, go ahead.
I was just going to mention my favorite movie that was filmed in Italy was Roman Holiday with Audrey
Uh-huh.
Hepburn and Gregory Peck. It's an oldie, but I thought it was such a sweet little movie, and it just gives you a little vibe of Rome, and it's enjoyable.
Yes. No,
As
it
for
is a very,
contemporary
very
movies, hmm
it is, and they never, even in the remakes, they could never capture the same atmosphere. They couldn't.
I
Even,
bet
I
not.
think it was the version with Ariana Grande or some other American singer actress who played like the part of Audrey Hepburn or something like similar on the line of the princess, you know, escaping. And then she was in
hmm
Rome on the Vespa and driving around, you know, the Fontana di Trevi, but the original one is unique.
Can't beat Audrey, no. I wouldn't even
Yeah,
try. Right.
yeah, absolutely. So,
hmm
any other questions did you receive in the DMs?
That was the only one I got. So,
Well, but I think
what
that we said a lot.
we did, and there are other guests. I'm sure you'll want to save some things to talk about during this week. So you have another IG chat on Wednesday, is that correct? And
Yes, I
another one on
have.
Friday.
Yes, yes, and they are going to be completely different because on Wednesday, Lisa Brancatisano is from Australia, and then and so she's based in Florence, and she cooks and she does
Oh,
tours.
great.
Yeah, and she's also a personal shopper because she has worked for designers for many years before opening her own
hmm
company. And then on Friday instead. There is Elfin Waters, and she's a teacher of Italian as a second language.
Okay,
And
very nice.
it's very, very interesting because she found her luck online on the Instagram, and she has a very unique method that she developed herself. So it's quite interesting.
Looking forward to that. I'll be sure not to miss them. And the
Yeah.
ones to come.
Yes, yes. Okay, so I will let you go because otherwise I'm gonna disappear.
In the darkness, yes. Well, thank you so much, Lucia. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me and having me here. And we'll see each other again, I'm sure of it.
Oh yes,
In
oh yes.
in
And
person. In
in
person.
person,
In
exactly. In
2021.
Turin.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, the
Promise.
year of the pig.
Il maiale, correct?
Esatto, il maiale, sì. Va bene. Thank you so
Grazie
much.
mille. Arrivederci.
Ciao amici, ciao Renata. Ciao ciao.
Ciao.